So I'm gonna be watching a video from a Cosmic Wonder where they talking about the Avengers Kang Dynasty original story, what could have been if they continue it as a movie and had Jonathan Major as Kane. What could have been different before they did Avengers Doomsday, before hiring Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom. So let's get started watching it.
Cosmic Wonder, we've been getting a lot of news about Avengers Doomsday recently, a lot of it from Marvel Studios, some from insiders, but in the midst of all of this, since we're getting so many announcements, people are asking what could have been for the Kang Dynasty. If Marvel Studios didn't move away from Kang, if Jonathan Majors was here, or even if they simply recast him, what could we have gotten from that movie? What would it have been like? Who would have appeared in that movie, and would it have been as big as Doomsday? Well, today, it looks like we have some of those answers. And one of the very interesting parts is that if nothing went wrong and we were still going to be getting the Kang Dynasty, it looks like we still were going to get Doctor Doom. It doesn't sound like he would have been too involved with Avengers Kang Dynasty, but they were going to set him up to become the Mutant Saga's big bad, which I think would have been great because then we would.
See, that's what just sucks about it. It's like it sucks when they have actors have problems and stuff. Something gets involved with their life, with their personal life and all, and then Hollywood has to let them go or something, and then they had to start over from scratch from whatever ideas they had from the movie. And I thought this was could have been really great. Just focus on Kane, and then I know everyone they've been talking about. Of course, Doctor Doom was gonna be in it, but I felt like Doctor Doom was gonna be like in the background, kind of like Thanos. Like we just knew a little stuff about him and didn't know so much, and the main focus was Kane. And I know I believe in the comics that Kane worked with Doctor Doom, but it just sucks that we're not gonna see this kind of stuff. So our main focus now is gonna be Doctor Doom.
Would have been great because then we would have had a lot of time to build up Doom, to introduce him, to go through his backstory, Latveria, his mother, his father, him meeting Reed Richards, becoming his roommate, the explosion that scars his face. I still do think we're going to get another Doom after Robert Downey Jr.'s Doom, but we'll get to that at the end. Let's go ahead and dive into the plot details of what could have been for Avengers the Kang Dynasty. And if you were here when I covered the big plot leak, it sounds like that was pretty much mostly true. Now, these details about the Kang Dynasty script are coming from Alex Perez of the Cosmic Circus, a reliable insider, and he says, in Kang Dynasty, separate Avengers teams set out to battle Immortus, Centurion, and Ramatut, the three Kang variants teased at the end of Quantumania. However, the Conqueror variant was going to return from the Beyond in the third act to take his revenge against the doppelgangers and become He Who Remains, which does make sense because in Loki Season 1 and Loki Season 2, we learned that He Who Remains at that time was the only Kang variant left, at the time of Loki Season 1 that is. And he's the only one left, we learned, because he won the multiversal war. So Alex Perez says it's unclear what would have happened from there, but heading into Avengers Secret Wars, with history repeating itself and the multiverse once again destroyed, we've heard surviving heroes from several different realities were set to battle the Beyonder in the void. So since Kang Dynasty was announced, we had been hearing from multiple different insiders, not just one or two, but multiple different insiders, that ultimately we would be getting a Kang the Conqueror slash Beyonder variant. They would kind of be one and the same, which makes sense considering the role that the Beyonder slash the Beyonders play in both versions of Secret Wars from the comics. They're big parts of both stories. Also, I still think the Void is going to play a major role in Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars as well, because I believe that it will most likely be Battleworld. The very first time I saw Deadpool and Wolverine and Cassandra Nova explain that she wanted to wipe out the entire multiverse, wipe out every single universe until there's nothing left but the Void, I instantly thought, well, that's what's going to happen, and the Void is simply going to be Battleworld, because the Void is where the remnants of destroyed universes go, and that is essentially what Battleworld is. It's a collection of a bunch of different universes that have died. So I still think they're going to keep that part about the Void in Avengers Doomsday slash Secret Wars, because it just makes sense. In fact, some heroes might even intentionally prune themselves or use Loki to get to the Void to survive the multiverse being destroyed. But continuing with Kang Dynasty plot details, Alex Perez says, it's said that Doctor Doom was never part of Marvel Studios' original plans for the two-part Multiverse Saga finale. Instead, He and others were to be revealed as being among those removed from the timeline by Kang to ensure they could thrive. However, once those variants had been defeated, Doom was teased as the evil they were trying to keep at bay with their actions. So the end of the multiverse saga would essentially have been the Avengers defeating the Council of Kangs, but revealing that Doom was an evil that even Kang wanted to keep away. Then that would have set up Doctor Doom to be the big bad of the next saga, which honestly, that would have been really cool. It would have been cool to see all of the variants of He Who Remains / Kang fight each other.
See, that wouldn't make sense. They shouldn't just wait for that. Focus on Kane and then later on have Doom later on. Because rushing into Doom right now, I felt like it went so fast. We didn't have anything about him. There was no tease. Um, and I know there's, like I said, for me, Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom wasn't the best choice, in my opinion. Um, what they could have done is hire a different actor, but they said this is a different variant. This one is gonna be, they're gonna have a different Doctor Doom later on in the future. But yeah, like I said, they shouldn't just focus on Kane, build it up little by little. Like I said, like in the background, like how they did with Thanos at the end of the first Avengers, and you knew he was gonna be the main villain, but it was gonna be him coming up later on in the future, and they could have done the same thing with Doctor Doom. But with everything that happened, everything's going so fast right away.
Other and the Avengers. And then at the end of it all, at the end of this huge multiversal war and the end of the multiverse, all this huge stuff happening, at the end of that all, they revealed there's somebody that even Kang the Conqueror feared. He feared him so much that he kept him out of his universe entirely. That would have been a pretty cool setup for Doom, but from what we've heard, that part about Doom being kept away from the sacred timeline is actually still going to come into play in Avengers Doomsday. I'll get into that in just a bit, but the last thing that Alex Perez says is that now you're getting the aftermath of what would have basically been the next saga. But with Doom,
See, because it make more sense. Like I know they said Doctor Doom is the top worst villain, not like the worst, but the scariest villain in the Avengers. Um, I know he's stronger than Thanos and Kane, so it would have been great if they done that. Cause I love Kane. I love the way Jonathan Majors did him as the character and all. The way watching him in Loki and in Ant Man, even though I didn't like Ant Man the way they did it, but I still say he did a pro- great performance. But yeah, like Doctor Doom, he could have been in the background. I want to stay away from Doctor Doom because I know Doctor Doom. They say he's the smartest. He's more powerful than any other villain.
Doom at the forefront instead of Kang, mixed in with a couple of ideas from previous scripts. So had things played out differently, Doom was set to be the Mutant Saga's big bad, and likely had a lot more screen time before debuting. It's always interesting to think about what might have been, but it's doubtful that Loveness and Waldron were the right people to pull this ambitious story off. Those were the previous writers assigned to these movies. The last thing it says is, while Loki did a great job of setting the stage for Kang, many regular moviegoers don't watch the MCU TV shows, so relying on the Ant-Man threequel to get people interested enough in seeing all these Kang variants go to war, well, that was going to be a big ask. Now, I still think they should address the post-credit scene for Quantumania, because for the people who aren't online every day watching YouTube videos, they're not involved in this stuff every week, they're going to be confused with what they set up in Quantumania's post-credits.
Yeah, that's true. Like I know not many people are a big fan watching the Marvel shows, or they're not subscribed to the Disney Plus. I'm not subscribed. I just usually use my sister's account, but I did watch Loki. It was great. I watched both seasons. I like I said, I did love how they introduced Kane in it. But in Ant Man wasn't all that great. Like I said, having Kane in Ant Man wasn't a great choice. Even though I do understand they're trying to build him up, but I felt like they shouldn't have done him as in a different character instead of Ant Man, because Ant Man didn't seem all that strong enough for it. But I do understand because the quantum mania and all that, and he was stuck in the quantum, and Kane as well. But I guess it makes sense a bit. But yeah, they shouldn't. It shouldn't have been something else. But yeah, people should just watch the Loki because like I said, showing Kane right there was a perfect way to show how scary he is, how intelligent he is, and everything. But everything he explains about the multiverse too as well.
If it just stops and nothing ever comes from that, they're going to say, well, what happened to that post-credit scene where they set up this villain who had multiple versions of himself? I hope Marvel wraps this up in a way. They don't even have to show Kang the Conqueror again, or they can show previous scenes that they've used of him. And it seems like there's an easy way to do that for something that they were going to set up originally in the Kang Dynasty, and in Secret Wars that would involve Kang. And that is what I mentioned, he was afraid of Doom. So afraid of him that, according to Alex Perez, he kept him out of his timeline, the sacred timeline. And when Doom comes into play in Avengers Doomsday, he is reportedly...
See, like I said, they shouldn't just waited for Doom until. Well, this is what I heard too. I'm sure it was rumors and all before they were scrapping Kang Dynasty. That the main focus was Kang Dynasty in Kang Dynasty Avengers Kang Dynasty, and then Secret Wars. They'll introduce who was the main villain, who was planning all this behind in the background, and it was Doctor Doom. And they shouldn't have done that, but no.
Reportedly going to be kind of pissed off at Kang and the TVA. After Marvel Studios' huge announcement that they did the other day, Alex Perez revealed some details about Avengers Doomsday, and one thing he said about Doom's subplot is that, 1. Doom thinks he is the hero, hence new mask, same task. That same task believed to be saving everybody. But then he said, 2. He hates and blames Kang and the TVA. So everything that Kang was doing before with the TVA, creating the TVA and then having the TVA prune timelines and also secluding his own timeline like he said he did in Loki Season 1, Doom hates Kang for that. So maybe Marvel Studios might show us a little bit of closure for Kang if they show us Doctor Doom wiping out the Kangs, or at least mentioning it, that along his journey to the TVA, along his journey to the 616 universe to meet all of the other Avengers and the X-Men, he handled Kang and the variants. I'm hoping that's what happens because according to Alex Perez, the ending of Avengers Doomsday is essentially going to be at the TVA. Like everything's going to go down at the TVA at the end. And from what he said before, Loki is what everybody is kind of seeking. Doom seeks to essentially dethrone Loki. And he says all roads lead to the TVA and there's going to be a full-on variant multiversal war erupting inside of the TVA at the end of the film. So it seems like Marvel Studios did a pretty decent job of kind of connecting our new script for Avengers Doomsday to the old one that was supposed to be Kang Dynasty originally. I do think it's a cool idea that Kang and Doom were afraid of each other, or Kang was afraid of Doom and Doom hated Kang for secluding him out of his timeline. That's a really cool idea. It also could explain why the X-Men were never in our timeline as well. Kang might have secluded them from the sacred timeline because he might have feared what they could do. So that would be a good explanation, and all in all, it does sound like this is all going to make sense, which is really what I was worried about, and I think a lot of people were worried about as well. But now I have a lot of confidence in Marvel Studios and our new writers and directors, the Russo brothers. I think they're going to be able to pull this off in a really excellent way. But would you have preferred the ending of Kang's story and the setup for Doom like they were originally going to do? Personally, I would have preferred that, but we are where we are, and I'll take what we can get. And I have faith and confidence that Doomsday is going to be great.
So yeah, it's like it could have been a great story. It's just focus on Kane and all, but sadly stuff happens, so things always have to change up. And of course, we're having the Russo brothers directing again. They directed the last two Avengers movie, and they directed the Winter Soldier, which that one's really great. So I'm sure they'll do a great job. But like I said, it just sucks when an actor there's personal stuff happening. They had to let them go fire, or sadly sometimes they pass away, just like the Black Panthers. Like he did an amazing job playing as the Black Panther, but sadly stuff happens, life happens. He passed away. Same with William Hurts, that he was playing as Thunderbolt Ross and he passed away, and then Harrison Ford replaced him. But sadly, Marvel shouldn't own the rights for the Hulk, and they couldn't done William Hurts as Red Hulk long time ago, or they could have done a TV show instead of doing all this like the She-Hulk. I say they should have done like the Hulk show, just like they did back in the 70s when they did the Hulk show. They could have done that, explain Hulk's story in between each Avengers movie and stuff, and see where he's been and on what he's been doing and stuff. But sadly, stuff happens and they can't do that, so they have to do as best they can. And if they don't have the actors They always have replaced the actor, but except for Chadwick Boseman, they didn't replace him for Black Panther. They were saying they weren't gonna replace him, but then they had the sister in Black Panther to become the Black Panther. So, but yeah, it doesn't sound too bad. It could have been great using this as Kang Dynasty, but now we just have to wait and see what's the actual plot story in for Avengers Doomsday, and then we'll see how it goes up to Secret Wars.